Hi everyone, I'm Dr.Animaction. Welcome to the latest video in my animated 90s series, which will be the first of 3 parts covering 1999. Sorry to break it down so much here at the end of the decade, but we've got over 50 series to cover, so I wanted time to spend a little bit on each of them. These videos will take us through the beginning of December, since I plan to take some time for Thanksgiving content, and then I'll close out the 90s and 2023 both with a summary video like I did with the 80s. Oh yeah, I'm also going to do a video where I cover all of the shows I missed over the 80s and 90s to make up for those as well. I'll also be continuing with series like The Personnel Office, Deep Dive Companions, and some more of the top 5 between now and then as well. I'm also, I guess, going to do my best to finish the Hanna-Barbera retrospective before year's end. Anything beyond those will be a bonus, but we'll see how it goes. Enough housekeeping though, let's get rolling with this video.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Well, it's been more than a couple of weeks since part 2 of 1998, so let's see if I can remember what happened that year. We had a decent number of things that we've come to expect, like new adaptations of classics, video game cartoons, and edutainment, but the big categories for the year were comedy and action. Those 2 categories alone accounted for more than a third of the 33 new series we got. Well, I say 33, but I actually missed quite a few that year, so look for them on that makeup video I talked about. Beyond that, adult animation continued its momentum with a few new releases, although, spoiler alert, it's got nothing on this year. And the last noteworthy thing of the year to put here is the continuing trend of releasing more basic slice-of-life type programming, as younger people around this time seem to be more eager to watch those slightly humorous series starring characters they could relate to in contemporary settings. Those have never really been any of my favorite types of cartoons, but I like to think that's because us 80s kids dreamed big and things started to come back down to earth around this point. But who knows? Let's see what stuck around here at the end of the decade. The oldest shows not called The Simpsons that were still on the air this year came from 1991. Kind of. The only one of these that had been on continuously since then was Rugrats, but Little Dracula made an unexpected comeback after 7 years off the air with a quartet of new episodes even. And Doug was also still on, even though that was the newer version on the Disney Channel. Toonheads was still doing its job of preserving animation history from 1992, and 93 was decently represented by Madeline, Tales from the Crypt Keeper, VeggieTales, The New Adventures of Gigantor, and the latest incarnation of the Power Rangers, with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Only Space Ghost Coast to Coast was still around from 94, but an 8-pack remained from 1995. These included Ace Ventura Pet Detective, Dr. Katz Professional Therapist, Happily Ever After Tales for Every Child, Little Bear, The Little Lulu Show, The Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, Timon and Pumbaa, and Rupert. 10 series from 1996 were still holding out here, consisting of Adventures from the Book of Virtues, Amazing Animals, Arthur, Beast Wars Transformers, though that would be changing a bit this year, Hey Arnold, Jumanji, Kablam, Superman the Animated Series, The Tex Avery Show, and Big Bad Beetleborgs. The leftover 1997 lineup was comprised of The Angry Beavers, Cow and Chicken, Daria, I Am Weasel, Johnny Bravo, King of the Hill, Men in Black the Series, The Mr. Men Show, The New Adventures of Batman, O Canada, Pepper Ann, Recess, Science Court, South Park, and Todd McFarlane's Spawn. Finally, of the more than 33 series that we got in 1998, all but 6 of them were still on the air this year. That's a huge list that's not getting read, but you can look at it here. Well, unless you're listening to this as a podcast. Sorry. Moving along though, let's see what we lost before the turn of the millennium. 1990 lost its last hanger-on with Bobby's World finally dropping out this year. Nothing from 91 or 92 disappeared, but we had a painful one from 1993 with Animaniacs. 94 saw a quartet of losses consisting of Life with Louie, Spider-Man, Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, and Reboot, and 95 gave up Pinky and the Brain. As if devoured by a hungry shark, a quintet of shows, pause for laughter, disappeared from 1996, with All Dogs Go to Heaven the series, Dexter's Laboratory, Inspector Gadget's Field Trip, Jungle Cubs, and the spooktacular New Adventures of Casper falling away. The largest losses for this year came from 1997 though, with a lineup containing 101 Dalmatians the series, Kipper, The Adventures of Sam and Max Freelance Police, Gadget Boys Adventures in History, Cartoon Sushi, Channel Umpty 3, TMNT The Next Mutation, The Ink and Paint Club, The Legend of Calamity Jane, The New Adventures of Zorro, and Walter Mellon. Finally, we have a mere 6 series that vanished from 1998, including The Fantastic Voyages of Sinbad the Sailor, Invasion America, which was actually a miniseries that ran to completion, The Lionhearts, Pocket Dragon Adventures, Salty's Lighthouse, and Silver Surfer. All in all, it wasn't the worst year for losses, with the exception of a couple like Animaniacs and Spider-Man, and maybe a few others. But let's see about their replacements. Well, replacements are something we got plenty of, since this year came with right around 50 new shows for us to watch. It's a really decent mix, with a little of everything too, and some all-time classics got their start this year as well. It was an especially good year to be an adult fan of animation, as we got what may be a decade high for releases geared toward older viewers. We also got a nice handful of action as well, making sure we ended the decade on a high note for the animated adrenaline chasers out there. Let's stop dancing around the actual content though, and dive right in. We'll go ahead and start where we usually do, with shows adapted from classic television or literature. Starting this section, we have a new series from a classic 1939 comic series with Archie's Weird Mysteries. This one takes the standard cast of Riverdale students and puts them in an all-too-common role of mystery-solving teens. In this case, an accident in the high school science lab ends up attracting all sorts of monsters and oddities, so Archie and pals are forced to deal with the pop culture-inspired phenomenon and goings-on they cause. The show takes inspiration from everything from Attack of the 50-Foot Woman to Men in Black, and was pretty fun and clever, if not exactly groundbreaking. It ran for a single 40-episode season on the PAX network. The main cast of characters weren't the only Archie Comics alum to get a new series this year though, as we also got Sabrina, the animated series, which was the second cartoon based on the 1971 character Sabrina the Teenage Witch. This one, however, aged her down to a 12-year-old Sabrina the pre-teenage witch and moved the antics to middle school. Usually the episodes involved an inexperienced Sabrina trying to use magic to solve some typical middle school problem with semi-disastrous results. It ran for a 65-episode season on UPN. Let's move from classic comics to classic cartoons though, as we got a trio of new series based on those. The first of these was the latest entry into the Looney Tunes canon, and was a 90-minute series combining classic Looney Tunes shorts with segments from the newer Warner Brothers series like Animaniacs and the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. It was called the Cat and Birdie Warner Rooney Pinky Brainy Big Cartoony Show, and a couple months after it premiered it was trimmed down to a regular 30-minute series. The only content that it played which could be considered new were some previously unaired segments of Pinky, Elmira, and the Brain, which hadn't made it during that show's prematurely cancelled original run. I'm not sure exactly how many episodes it managed, but it ran on Kids WB from January of this year until August of next. Disney brought back their classic characters in a new short segment format this year themselves with Mickey Mouse Works. This one was more interesting than most of their previous shows of the same format, however, since this one they tried to retain the feel of the classic animation, but did so with newly made material. Various skits in the series mimicked things like the series of theatrical shorts Silly Symphonies or the 90-second quick shots. A total of 96 new segments were produced and aired as part of 25 episodes across 2 seasons, as part of the ABC Disney's One Saturday Morning. It was also interestingly narrated by someone I value as highly as Tim Curry, which is saying a lot for me, with Monty Python alum John Cleese taking on the role.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
The third and final classic cartoon to make a comeback this year came in the form of the new Woody Woodpecker show. Interestingly, this show did the same thing that Disney was doing with Mickey by making new content with the original Woody Woodpecker characters in the classic cartoon style. Each of the 64 episodes of the show ran 2 segments of Woody and a segment of Chilly Willy, for a total of 178 new shorts over its 3 seasons on Fox Kids. If I'm being honest, Woody was one of my least favorite from the Golden Age characters, so I never really got into any of the re-releases. And closing out this category, we turn our attention to literature and the works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle with the release of Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. This series sees the actual detective resurrected through science by a Scotland Yard detective in the year 2103 to help stop a clone of the evil Dr. Moriarty. With the help of a robot who takes on the form and mannerisms of his stalwart companion Dr. Watson, Holmes sets about to his usual work of solving crimes while trying to adjust to a totally new and different London at the same time. It ran for 26 episodes over 2 seasons, initially on Fox Kids before moving into syndication. This next category is a short one, as we only got a single series this year based on a film. Well, technically it's based on a film that was based on a novel, but the movie was so different from the source material I imagine some people out there would go nuts if I linked the two. Roughnecks, Starship Troopers Chronicles, was a continuation of the world established in the Love It or Hate It Paul Verhoeven take on the Robert Heinlein military sci-fi classic Starship Troopers. Seriously, if you've never read the book, the movie has almost nothing in common with it except for some of the names. That being said though, I personally love the movie, but that's probably because I saw it in a packed theater full of rowdy soldiers when it first came out when I was on active duty in the Army. The series, though, follows the efforts of Razak's Roughnecks prior to the movie timeline as they defeat a bug infestation on Pluto and begin a series of adventures that eventually leads to the discovery of the bug homeworld Klendathu. The series was actually a lot of fun, and especially so if you already like the story. It ran for 40 episodes over a single syndicated season, or 44 if you count the several clip shows. Video games, on the other hand, got several adaptations rather than the single one from movies, including at least one straight-up classic. You know me, though, so we won't be starting with that one. Instead, we'll begin this section by looking at an obscure series based on an obscure game in Blaster's universe. I guess the game, or series of games, rather, isn't that obscure because I remember playing Math Blaster when I was in 4th or 5th grade. Anyway, this series was loosely based on the main character from those games, called the Blasternaut. In the show, Max Blaster is a 12-year-old human kid who teams up with the alien GC and her robot dog Mel to engage in various educational adventures. CBS aired the series for its single 13-episode season. Next up is a show based on a significantly more famous and popular video game character with Sonic Underground, the third animated series based on Sega's famous Blue Blur mascot. The series takes place in a timeline and universe that's separate from the games, though, in a world that's already been overthrown by Dr. Robotnik. Sonic is one of 3 children of the deposed Queen Alina, and the series follows him and his siblings as they try to fulfill the prophecy of reuniting with their mother to save the planet, both as resistance fighters and as an outlaw rock band. It was a pretty fun series, even though it did some weird stuff with the character, like having him be afraid of water and wearing shoes that let him run on air. But maybe he saw the drowning animations in some of his earlier games, because that's enough to make me afraid of water too. It ran in syndication as part of the Bobot Kids block. Closing out this category, we have not one, but 2 entries based on games in the rapidly expanding monster hunting genre, starting one of the longest, most brutal debates since Coke vs. Pepsi or Xbox vs. PlayStation. We'll take a look at the notionally smaller one first with Monster Rancher, another series that, like Pokemon, was imported from Japan and based on the game series of the same name. The first game on the PS1 was unique, since the way you recruited new monsters for your party was by inserting other CDs from around the house, be they music or whatnot, and letting the system generate new creatures based on which ones you chose. The cartoon took the same approach, where the main character Genki wins a special disc from the creators of the Monster Rancher game that, when used, instead of generating a new monster for him, transports him into a whole new world like the one in the game. There he meets a young girl named Holly and an assortment of monsters, and joins them on their journey to discover the legendary Phoenix and save their world. The show ran for a total of 73 episodes and appeared at various times as part of the Bobot Kids network, on Fox Kids, and on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was a pretty great series based on some pretty fun games, but the other monster hunting adventure from the year is probably more well remembered by a larger audience. That's because this year brought us the first animated entry in the very long-running Digimon series, with the 54-episode Digimon Adventure. In this show, a group of 7 kids at a summer camp discover some mysteriously appearing digivices that transport them into the digital world. Once there, they meet and befriend several digital monsters and learn their status as the Digidestined, saviors of the digital world. And, for the record, the word digital has quickly begun to lose any meaning for me as I write this, let alone narrate it. Anyway, the kids and their new friends set out to find their way back to the real world, while all the while being hunted by the evil Devimon and his army of corrupted Digimon called the Black Gears. Though not as prolific as Pokemon, this series was the first of 9 released so far, with a combined total of 519 episodes, as well as 20 animated films. I'm not going to even pretend to pick a side here, but feel free to make your argument for which of the 3 you prefer in the comments. Though something like Blaster's universe probably could fit into this category, even without including it, we find a pair of edutainment series released this year. The first of these was an HBO series called Crashbox, which ran for 52 episodes over 2 seasons. The show was set inside a computer where a bunch of robots would load various cartridges that would play a short educational game. Each episode would be made up of 7 or 8 of these games, each of which would run in 5-minute or less segments and cover standard school subjects like history and math. Occasionally, the robots themselves would be part of an interstitial skit between the segments that was a standalone component, kind of like the Electric Company format from almost 3 decades earlier. The series actually ran for a pretty long time in reruns, airing on HBO Kids all the way up until 2016. The other edutainment series we got this year focused less on the classic school subjects and more on animals and nature, and to be fair, was only partially animated. Zaboomafoo premiered this year on PBS Kids, created by and starring the Kratt brothers as they, along with the ring-tailed lemur Puppet and occasionally real-life lemur Zaboomafoo, interacted with different animals and learned lessons about them. It makes the list, though, due to the claymation animated Zobuland segments contained in each episode, which featured a stand-in lemur named Zobu in a world of talking animals, helping his friends solve their everyday problems. It also had some traditionally animated mystery animal segments set to the song Who Could It Be that ran in each episode. The series initially aired for 65 episodes over 2 seasons, but remained a part of the PBS Kids lineup in syndication all the way up until 2017. One genre that got a decent number of shows this year, including one of those aforementioned all-time classics, was comedy. In fact, a couple of these are probably considered some of the decade's greats, but we'll go from obscure to known, and I'll let you decide for yourselves. Starting with the obscure is a series called The Brothers Flub, which came to Nickelodeon for a single 26-episode season this year. The story in this one is about a pair of aliens, the titular Brothers Flub, who work as couriers flying through space to deliver packages. Oddly enough, that's not the only time you'll hear that story synopsis this year, so stay tuned for my other parts. Their travels are antics-filled adventures to various strange planets with bizarre and sometimes dangerous packages. One interesting piece of trivia for this show is that it was actually co-produced by board game and puzzle company Ravensburger, who makes some really great games that I hope to talk about soon. I've never seen this one, but I do plan to check it out. Next up in this category is a Fox Family Channel series called The Kids from Room 402, which aired for 52 episodes across 2 seasons. This one was about a class of unspecified aged, but seemingly fairly young kids, and their daily lives as students in teacher Gracie Graves' Class 402. It's apparently based on a children's book that came out in 1995, but I've both never seen the show or book, nor had I heard of them before researching this video series. In fact, I'm only putting it in this section because Wikipedia calls it a comedy, but based on the couple examples I watched on YouTube, that description is fairly subjective. So moving on. Here's where this category starts getting into some heavy hitters, starting with Ed, Edd and Eddy. This one I actually have seen, which shouldn't be very surprising since it was pretty popular and on all the time when it came out. The show follows the trio of assorted Eds from the title as they try and fail to enact various money-making schemes under the leadership of Eddy. The plans usually involve some kind of creation made by Ed, with 2 Ds, and often disrupted unintentionally by the dim-witted single D Ed. I can see why the series was popular, but most of its humor didn't land with me. It ran on Cartoon Network for 69 episodes over 6 seasons. Sliding further along the popularity scale, debatedly I admit since it ran for fewer initial episodes, is another Cartoon Network entry with Courage the Cowardly Dog. This is kind of a strange one since it is comedic, but it's also downright creepy and disturbing at parts throughout. The story follows the title character Courage, who lives with his elderly owners at an isolated farmhouse in Nowhere, Kansas. Courage spends most episodes defending the farm and the couple from various supernatural or paranormal threats that invade the home or surrounding area. The series only ran for 52 episodes over 4 seasons, but I still say it's more popular than the Eds, since Courage crossed over with none other than Scooby-Doo as recently as 2021, and those 3 can't claim anything nearly as cool. Finally in this category though, we come to our very first full-fledged cultural phenomenon of the year with the disturbingly popular SpongeBob SquarePants, which is another entry on the list of shows that need no introduction, especially since it's been running uninterrupted since releasing in May of this year and has so far racked up 293 episodes. You probably all know the deal with this one already, as it follows the misadventures of a not-too-bright sponge and his even less bright starfish best friend as they work at a fast food restaurant for a grumpy Clancy Brown and cause varying degrees of trouble for him and neighbor Squidward in the cozy town of Bikini Bottom. Oh, and he may have a romantic relationship with a scuba diving squirrel. Okay, I know that's not really the case, and the show creators have had to deal with, well, let's just say relationship controversy over the show's lifespan. I thought I'd toss that joke in there, though, to have a chance to mention that I am aware of said controversies, and I don't care, so no need to mention them in the comments. Regardless of various attempts at politicizing the series, it is still going strong and widely beloved today, stretching into every other corner of multimedia and merchandise, up to and including theme park rides, and is definitely a heavy hitter from this year. But that's where I'm cutting it off for part 1 here. Thanks for putting up with my short break, but I should be getting back to my normal unscheduled release schedule from here out. That means that you can expect part 2 to come out this time next week and cover a similar number of shows, and part 3 to close this one out after that. Anyone expecting anything from the year with the reach and impact of SpongeBob? We'll see here in the next couple weeks. Keep an eye out for the Snake Eyes episode of the Personnel Office here soon, and the deep dive companion for the comic strip 2 as I get back on pace and try to catch up a little. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned and stay tuned, as in cartoons. Later.